Are you allowing yourself to be you? Hi, my name is Sam. I'm the host of the show, The Forward Theory. You can find more of the show's content online at The Forward Theory on TikTok and on Instagram. You can also watch the show on YouTube if you look for the channel Super Awesome Mix. We are one of the 4 podcasts listed there. I am likely to be taking a break pretty soon, but before I do that, I really wanted to get in this episode, knowing that it might be the last one before I take a little mid-season break for a couple of weeks here. And the message is similar to one that I've ended on before, which is a reminder to all of us, myself included, to just be yourself. It is really easy to want to model your behavior after other successful people in your space. I would say that the first part of any journey, it's prudent to do that. If you want to excel as a pro athlete, you will want to learn what other pro athletes have done in the past to get to where they're going. If you want to have a top ranked podcast, you will likely want to learn from people with top ranked podcasts and understand what they've done to get to where they are. If you want to run a marathon, I would definitely recommend learning what other people have done to train for and run a marathon. You see where this is going. However, there's a trap that is really easy to fall into, and it is not also listening to yourself and not allowing your version of the story to express itself. I struggle with this when it comes to optimization and productivity and trying to squeeze out every single drop of productivity out of my day. I went through many, many years, and I'm still a little bit of a productivity addict of trying to understand how to optimize every minute of my day, every hour of the day, when to sleep, when to wake up, when to exercise, how to do all these things, how to manage my to-do lists. I've tried so many apps under the sun. I've created many of my own productivity apps. And all the time, I never really stopped to question what I was doing and why I was doing it. Specifically, I never questioned what works for me because we read all these books, we listen to these podcasts, and I appreciate you listening to this one now. The irony is not lost on me. And we want to understand what works for other people so that we can take it and apply it, hopefully, for our own lives. But we are all very unique people, and that's a wonderful and awesome thing. We bring our own experiences, our own knowledge, our own perspective on things that is quite literally unique to us. And so copying what someone else does can really often only get us so far. And in fact, limiting your own flavor of it and your own modifications of it are probably limiting your success in that space. There's a commencement speech that Conan O'Brien gives, and I haven't watched it in some time, but there's a part of it that has stuck with me all these years later. So I'm going to paraphrase. But he essentially talks about how he was so desperate to be one of the great late night hosts like David Letterman or Johnny Carson. And he modeled himself after them and really, quite literally, tried to copy them basically and do exactly what they did so that he could also be among their names. And it wasn't until he realized that he was never going to be them that he allowed himself to be himself. And that was a huge turning point for his career because he started to have a lot of success in that way because he was expressing who Conan O'Brien is and was and how we all know him today. It's a very powerful lesson. And it's one that I, as I've mentioned, very often ignore. I am so eager to be at a point in my career and with my goals, both professional and personal, that I will eat up any advice someone gives me instantly without ever questioning, does this work for me? And what is my style? And what might my success look like? What has helped me in this regard, funny enough, is imagining myself giving an interview or writing a book 20 years down the line where people ask me, "Hey, Sam, what was your secret to success? Like, tell us." And I sit there and I think about it and I start to talk about all the different things that I've done and how I found success and here's what I think you should do, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm realizing that in that version of the story, in that interview in my mind, I want it to be my story. I don't want it to just be a complete copy of someone else's. I want to share my flavor of it. And in order to do that, I literally have to have my own flavor of it. I need to think about what works for me and what doesn't. And so, my recommendation as you go forward in this life and go forward with your goals and you take a look at what other people are doing and how it can apply to your life, be open minded with it. Use it as a guide, use it as a rough path forward, but then find your own footing and make your own path because people are going to want to know how you did it one day. And hopefully, the answer that you give, and the answer that I give, and the answer that we all give when we reach our goals that we're pursuing is unique to each of us. We can be guided and helped by the people who have forged a path ahead of us, but ultimately, it is our own path that we must make. I'll give you a concrete example from my life. I've mentioned reading the book 5 a.m. Club before. And for a while, I was very committed to the idea of the 5 a.m. Club. I would wake up at 5 a.m., I would do the 20 version of the hour. I think it was 20 minutes of movement, 20 minutes of meditation or some kind of reflection, and then 20 minutes of reading. And I was super into it, but it really wasn't working for me in the grand scheme of things because I had to go to bed very early in order to wake up at 5, which didn't work for my evening patterns and for my now wife and my dog and a number of other things that made it very limiting to do that. But I forged through anyway because I was like, oh, I'm committed. I have to be a part of the 5 a.m. club, and here's how it's written out. And I'm taking it as gospel, basically. It was a very dogmatic approach to it. And then eventually realized that this is just not sustainable for me. It doesn't make any sense. I'm dragging, I'm crashing it like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I started to berate myself and be annoyed at myself for not being good enough to be part of the 5 a.m. club. And I thought, well, this is all self-imposed, right? And I adjusted it. And for a time period, I was waking up at 5:30 a.m. instead of 5. That seemed to work a little bit better for me, but I still had crashes, but that now they were a little bit later in the day. And it just again was not working for me in the evenings when, we had a number of things we needed to get done and we would be finishing up work late. And so honestly, I only had like a half hour with my dog and with my wife before I needed to head to bed in order to get enough sleep to not crash. You can see the issue here. Eventually, I kind of let it all go except for a couple of things. And what I kept was namely doing my meditation first thing in the morning and sometimes some journaling with coffee. That was something I really enjoyed doing first thing because that was when I was ironically most awake and not likely to fall asleep when I close my eyes and meditate for 15 or 20 minutes. And I've really enjoyed that. What I let go of was the 5 a.m. or 5:30 part. And I really checked in with myself and I thought, well, when do I have the most productive days? When am I happiest at the end of the day? When do I feel like I'm actually doing the best work? And when do I feel like I don't need a nap throughout the day, which takes me out of my flow and can sometimes leave me really groggy and unproductive? And it's when ideally I don't need to set an alarm at all, or I'm woken up by my dog, or I'm woken up by the light coming in through the bedroom, or I'm woken up at the very latest by 6:30 with an alarm. And I made that decision for myself. This is what works for me. This is when I'm most productive. This is when I'm happiest. This is when it works for my wife and my dog and for, across the board. And I've been sticking with that ever since. And it's not anything I need to try to do. I don't need to force myself into some box that it doesn't suit my life because this is just a very natural thing for me to do. And I don't need to berate myself for not fitting into someone else's idea of how I should spend my mornings or my days or whether or not I am cool enough to say I'm in the 5 a.m. club. All of that, in my opinion, is ego, more or less. And look, if you need that discipline and you need to start your day in a way of doing something that you don't really want to do, and there's a lot of research that starts to suggest that, doing things that are difficult can help you do other difficult things. And I've talked about them myself often enough as well. That's great. This is not to say that you are doing anything wrong. What I do suggest though is that when you're trying something and it's not working for you, take a beat and think about why you're doing it and think about what works better for you and think about how you can modify the recipe a little bit so that it's perfect for you and that it does not have to be an all or nothing thing. Like I mentioned, I now wake up and do a meditation pretty much first thing, and I journal while I'm drinking coffee. That is a really nice way and a calm way for me to start the morning, and that's an adaptation of what the 5 AM club prescribed anyway. It just doesn't require that I go to bed at 8 o'clock and wake up at 5. So as you look to model yourself after people who have made it ahead of you, just remember to use it as a guide. Use it as a rough map to get to where you're going, learn from their mistakes, learn from their successes, integrate those things into your life, but make sure you evaluate if they're working for you or not. And if your body is giving you signals that they're not working, like you're dragging, you're really unhappy, you're just not finding a flow state, you know, any of these things that kind of suggest this is not for you, don't immediately just throw it out and quit and walk away, which I'm guilty of at times. But sit down and think, well, what do I like about what I'm doing, if anything? What do I not like about what I'm doing? List those things out and start to think about how you might modify them. And think about times when you were feeling really good in your life and feeling very successful and productive or strong or whatever context means the most to you. I'm willing to bet that you have more of the answers than you give yourself credit for, and that you know yourself better than anyone knows you. You can also ask friends and family and anyone who might be close to you to give their opinion as well and help them kind of pull parts of your life out where you felt like you were doing great. I believe I've said this many times on the show before, but ultimately, the message that I try to reiterate is to check in with yourself and trust yourself, and that you know what you need to do. The answers are already in you. The power to do what you want is already in you. When people transform their lives, it is really easy to see them as two separate people, as like the death of one version and the birth of another. But in reality, we are the same people, pre change and post change. When I consider myself at the time period of my life when I was drinking and overweight and eating poorly, it does feel like a different version of me, but that's me. That's the same me as the person now who is fit and runs marathons and doesn't drink and eats well. We are both in the same pool of identities swirling around in our brain, in my brain, and in my heart and in my body. What changes is the decision to express one version over the other. In biology and specifically in genetics, there is this idea of genotype and phenotype. Genotype are your genetics. It's actually what is floating around in your cells. It's the DNA code that makes up who you are. It's our blueprint. The phenotype is what actually gets expressed. And I love this idea when it comes to self help and self development and change. We have the makings of any version of us. What changes is what we choose to express. Which blueprint are we going to pull down, and what rooms of this blueprint are we going to make, and what rooms of the blueprint are we going to tear down? That is all in you. You can be as fit and as strong as you want. You can be as successful as you want. You can be as wealthy and healthy as you want. You can pursue these things and you are capable of these things. You have to believe it and you have to trust yourself that you know how to do it. Other people can help push you, other people can help motivate you, other people can give you that little nudge to get the ball rolling, but ultimately, you are the one in charge. You are the one making these choices, and you are the one that is going to wow yourself with the transformation. Just remember to always be kind to yourself along the way. Check in, make changes, be adaptable, and you will be shocked at how far you will go. As I mentioned at the top of this recording, I am likely going to be off for a couple of weeks for a mid season break. I will run some popular rerun episodes, and I will see you in the fall, which is my favorite time of year. And I think it's an appropriate time to come back for the show because fall is a season of change. And so, as we all look forward to our season of change internally, I will also look forward to the external season of fall because it is literally my favorite season other than winter. Until then, take care and just keep moving forward.